The latest update patch for Darkest Dungeon 2 has implemented the new pet system, 10 individual pets that essentially act as another piece of stagecoach equipment and giving your team unique buffs throughout the run. Pets are unlocked at the Altar of Hope and randomly appear at the first inn, where they can be purchased and equipped for 1 relic. This video will explain and rate the various pets. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe. I post new videos every day. The Crimson Tick offers you a 5% chance to produce the blood every time your team secures a killing blow. On average, you can expect maybe 3 to 5 or so a run, obviously dependent heavily on RNG. For those of you who don't know, since it was a pretty rare item previously, the blood is a consumable that provides a speed token, strength token, and crit token, along with stress, to the target of your choice. If your team is using one of the premier damage dealers in this game, the ones with high top-end range, such as Hellion, Occultist, Jester, or Leper, this item can be a lifesaver in the toughest fights in the game. I've used it to essentially one-shot a lock while running Denial. There's obviously no persistent buff like some of the other pets, but for the strategically minded player, the scale is much better since it gives you a lot of control over how you utilize it. With a more muted team damage-wise, it doesn't scale quite as well, but most teams utilize at least one potential nuke hero, which lets me slot this in the universally useful tier. The Hatchling Crocodilian gives a battle-long damage buff of 2% to a hero each time they are moved during combat, and a 20% chance of losing 1 speed. This includes any sort of movement, self-movement, enemy movement, Jester moving other heroes, and any hero that changes position benefits from this move, making skills such as Solo and Finale a party-wide buff. Unfortunately, the buff is just too low to matter in the vast majority of fights, whereas the downside can be brutal, as even losing 1 speed can be devastating because of things like trinket requirements. Even running a pure movement team, which is rarely optimal, you're pretty much never even getting to 10% damage, and without a pure movement team in most fights, you're not even hitting thresholds that change your damage at all. It's certainly not trash because it obviously scales better in the longer, more difficult fights, but I can't put it in the universally useful tier because of the narrow number of teams that derive real benefits from this, and the massive, massive downside that exists for no practical reason. Clearly situational. The Larval Carrion Eater activates upon killing a corpse. Notably, this is for actively killing a corpse, not simply removing it with the various corpse removal skills, and provides a heal of 15% and a block token. Most of the time you don't want to be killing corpses. It's a huge waste of an action, but this is actually a very significant upside, worth the use of a turn in a pinch, especially with no heal teams. The downside, of course, is a lot of your heroes simply can't one-shot corpses, making this a bit tougher to work through, and of course you're not getting any benefits in the toughest fights, like bosses, because of the lack of corpse interaction. This becomes much better when you have the General's Trophy, which provides more corpse-killing power. It's a powerhouse in the right fit, but outside of high direct damage, no healer runs, it's mostly a waste of space, making this a clear fit in the situational tier, though I like it more than the Croc. The Mucilaginous Slime is one of the 6 pets that interact with specific stagecoach equipment type and provides buff based on that, rather than the general combat bonuses. This one gives you a party-wide 5% increase to debuff resist for each road gear you equip, which includes all the new stagecoach items that interact with the new wheel and armor system, and everything surrounding that new mechanic. You also have an increased chance to loot items from random debris piles. The debuff resist is pretty worthless, especially since you need specific stagecoach items to unlock it, and rarely do you want to spend money on equipment early on, which means you rarely get any benefit from an already weak reward. However, getting free junk from trash piles is a real tangible benefit that you receive all run long, up until the mountain, unlike so many other pet rewards. I slipped this in the back of the universally useful tier because of this, not because it's super powerful and everything, just because it actually does something which is somewhat a rarity with the new pet mechanic. The Orphan Wolf Cub is the first pet unlocked, and he has a small but noticeable buff. He'll deliver 5% party-wide stress resist for each luxury gear item you have equipped, which includes some of my favorite stagecoach equipment, such as the Wind Chime, Trinket Organizer, and the Strong Boxes. Of course, you still need to find and or purchase these for this mechanic to have any effect, but at least these are items you actually want to equip and consider purchasing. This little buddy also has a quite significant 10% positive relationship chance boost, higher than any of the stagecoach equipment items that impact this. There's never a bad team or situation to equip this pet. It's an easy slot in the universally useful tier, slightly above the Tick because although the upside is rarely as high, It is persistent and consistent. The Pygmy Pliskin is a slithery fellow that provides plus 5% traveling heal for each piece of medical gear you have equipped, and will also heal a random hero 5% after each location. There's a decent amount of stagecoach equipment in this tier, but only about half you would really enjoy equipping and only a few worth buying. This is nice because it has a persistent effect even without medical gear, but the benefit is just so laughably low that it can't really be anything but the bottom of the situational tier. The Reanimated Rabbit gets the award for ugliest pet. This is the food build pet, granting you +1 max HP for every 4 food items you have, along with 1 speed for every food gear you have equipped, which include things like griddle, icebox, and barrels. This is a highly regarded pet among the fan base, but I'm pretty skeptical of it overall. 1 HP is pretty insignificant considering how much opportunity cost this has. Without barrels, this is hardly even usable, since your inventory will overflow before you can start to receive any tangible benefits. The food gear benefit, however, is impactful even with 1 lone speed, though food gear is rarely something you want outside of this build, the exception being griddle, though that item is too pricey to consider in one, nerfing the overall build. This means this cannot climb above the situational tier, but this also has among the highest upsides of all pets, because if you can get the proper food gear set up with icebox and barrels, the scaling is tremendous. Definitely above the eater at the top of the situational category. The Shambler spawn, also known as Baby Sham, is the final pet unlock, and for good reason. This pet has a heavy downside, reducing your scouting by 100%, but acts as a party-wide dark impulse, allowing you to equip any number of cultist trinkets without the need to waste 2 slots to do so on any hero. With the increased cultist trinket drop rates from this patch, and this pet's other benefit, which gives you plus 200% scouting for cultist encounters, you're highly likely to find a benefit from this in the majority of your runs. It's certainly the highest upside pet on this list, letting you absolutely dominate the game if you get the correct rolls. The downside is devastating, of course, but it's just something you live with. Sits alone atop the OP tier. The Shrieker Chick gives you plus 2% party crit for each piece of scouting gear you have. This is quite strong because scouting gear is something heavily sought after in the current iteration of the game. Both generic scouting and targeted scouting like the Hoarder Decoder, which has become quite OP. Of course, the buff is quite small, but persistent. Fear not though, because this pet also delivers an extra 2 baubles whenever you loot any. With this update, including stagecoach repair and reduced trinket prices, any sort of extra baubles is crucial for a run, and this provides a sneakily large amount throughout the course of a run. These buffs don't scale to the heights the Shambler does, but the Shrieker Chick is a great fit for the universally useful tier, far outclassing others in this category. And finally, we saved the worst for last, the Unnatural Owlet. You gain 5% debuff piercing for every Tinker's gear you have equipped, one of the weaker types of equipment in the game. This so-called benefit synergizes with the other benefit, producing extra items from stagecoach items that produce items, such as the Trap Maker. This is fine though, situational just like all the other pets in this category, and this one has a particularly low upside compared to real pets. It technically stays out of the trash tier because of the latter benefit, but it's certainly at the back of that pack. Boring as heck as well. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe. I post new content every day.